is a member of Odd Pods Media and ASAP All Sports All Plays Network. Hello, and good morning. Welcome into Big Ten Plus 4. We bring you college sports with a Midwest perspective. We are blue collar and blue blood. I am Sam Sprunger. I'm your host today. I'm by myself today. Dalton Shetler is in Minneapolis at the Women's Big Ten Tournament. We're going to talk about that tournament after the halftime break. And we're going to get into a lot of other things on the men's side that has happened, and still things that can happen. That's the craziness. There is, we have an outright champion, and that happened last night. It was kind of odd because Purdue ended up clinching the outright championship, but they could have benefit or gotten that outright championship before they even tipped off in the game against Wisconsin that they played in Madison last night. But today, or before if Illinois beat Michigan, Purdue could have been the Big Ten outright champions before they even tipped. But as you may know, that game went into double overtime, so it was in the middle of the first half that came to fruition. It was a moot point because Purdue ended up beating Wisconsin anyway to give them an outright championship as well. So lots going on in the men's side of the Big Ten. Still a lot of jockeying going on in the conference for seeding, and that's the big thing, is there's still a lot to be played for because there's seeding still that can be done. First day or the super bye, or whatever you want to call it. The top four teams get the bye all the way into Friday, and they don't have to play Wednesday. They don't have to play Thursday. So there's a lot that is there. We're going to look at that. But let's talk about what has happened since we last were on with Game Day Gabby from Hammer and Rails on Wednesday on the men's side. And I do apologize. I have got a cold. So it will be, it might be one of those that I might have to stop for a second and blow my nose or something. But I do apologize ahead of time. So it's that time of year where the weather's starting to mess with, maybe sinuses and things like that, or if it's an actual cold. I don't know. But we were on Wednesday, and before any games tipped off, we were looking. Maryland was in second, according to the tiebreakers or whatever you want to call it, and they went to Columbus against the struggling Ohio State Buckeyes, and they promptly went and lost in Columbus. This is what we talked about with Game Day Gabby. I've talked to it with Dalton. And Mike DeCourcy even. It's unusual because they are so dominant at home, but when they go on the road, you get a completely different team. And it's very confusing on how you can see maybe what Maryland does in the tournament, because they are two teams. They're Jekyll and Hyde. They go home, that you come to College Park and you lose, but you get Maryland on the road. They're very beatable. They can win games. They've won games, but they are very, very beatable. So it's a confusing team to try to figure out when it comes to March and the NCAA tournament. And so the Terrapins have a lot of work. Kevin Willard's a fantastic coach. No matter what I've said about my disagreement or whatever with his statement about Trace Jackson Davis and Zach Edey, that's not the point. I can disagree with him and still really, really like him as a coach, and I do. I've been beating that drum since Maryland made that hire. I think it was a fantastic hire. I think he's the third best coach this year in the Big Ten, behind Chris Collins and Matt Painter, uh, because all three of those coaches have performed. Their teams have outperformed their preseason predictions, and I think Chris Collins, where he has Northwestern, is an amazing job. Matt Painter, uh, we all know that Purdue wasn't supposed to be the Big Ten champion, and here they are. They're 25-5. They're the outright regular season Big Ten champion, and and then you've got Kevin Willard. He came into Maryland with a really bare cupboard, in the aspect of the way last year Mark Turgeon leaving in the middle of the season, Danny Manning doing a decent job as the interim, and then they brought Kevin in, and there just was some question as to what Maryland would be, and he has done a bang up job there at College Park. The other game that was extremely exciting on Wednesday was Penn State and Northwestern. Penn State went into Evanston and they stun. I say stun in the aspect of they beat Northwestern at home, or at Northwestern, in overtime on a 3 with 5/10 of a second left. It was Cameron Winter hit the 3. He also led the way for the Nittany Lions with 24 in the victory over the Wildcats, knocking the Wildcats. The Northwestern was the only team at that point that could have. Oh no, I'm sorry. I apologize. That was against Maryland. So never mind. Strike that and get that out of there. But to go into Northwestern and win is a feat. They play extremely well. Everybody plays better at home than they do on the road normally, and that's to be expected. It's home. But to go into Northwestern, Penn State, who's struggling, really needs a win. They go in, they get the win against Northwestern. Boo Booey, 20 points. It was a really good game. I was watching it, and it was back and forth. Northwestern was up 7, then Penn State would get back. Then it would be back and forth, went to overtime, and then that very exciting. Everybody assumed, I'm guessing, other than maybe Penn State, that they were going to double overtime. You got the shot off, but you just didn't expect it, and then boom, it went down, and the Nittany Lions walk out of Evanston with a win, helping them with their bubble issues. They're squarely on the bubble, and I think that helps. I think this win against Northwestern doesn't solidify. They could still not make the tournament if they lose their last game, and then they get bumped in early in the Big Ten tournament next week. They could still not make the tournament, but I think this helps extremely. This helps their case. This bumps them further up the line on the bubble to where it's not as touchy of a subject when it comes to being on the bubble. It's less likely to burst, I guess, is the best way to put it. So Penn State making their case. They've got one more game, and I believe it's against Rutgers. Let me look at it. Oh, no. I'm sorry. It's versus Maryland. So that's going to be a tough one for Penn State. But if they get that win, that's a top 25 win if they can win on Saturday in Happy Valley. I think if they win that, then that's probably going to solidify their bid. I think that might be enough to push them up and over. We'll look at the bracketology, the latest bracketology from Mike DeCourcy at Fox. Excuse me, at Fox Sports, and and Big Ten Network. We've got his bracketology that we'll look at on the other side of the first quarter break. But it's Penn State is squarely there. They control their own destiny. If they lose to Maryland and they end up winning a couple of games maybe, or getting to the quarterfinals or whatever in the Big Ten tournament, I think they're in. They've got some good wins. They've got some bad losses. Excuse me, but I think they've got a lot going for them. That it will help them if they can get a couple more wins. Let's move to yesterday. Move to Thursday really quick before. Oh my, what a night of all 3 games. Let's see here. That's a 4-point game. 4 points is the biggest win. It is the biggest margin of victory of the 3 games. That was the Illinois-Michigan game. That went to double overtime. Illinois pulls it out. I watched that before I was flipping back and forth between that and the Purdue game. What a game. Illinois up 9 late in the game with about 4 or 5 minutes left. Michigan comes storming back. Boykin, I believe, is I don't remember his first name, and I don't have the roster pulled up. Just absolutely blew up and brought the Wolverines back into that game. Hunter Dickinson, 31 points overall, hit some big threes to get it to over, or some big shots, a 3 to get it to overtime. In overtime, then Michigan blew out to a 7-point lead, and you're thinking, okay, well, they're going to keep it alive. At least it's going to rely solely on Purdue to win the outright if they want the outright tonight. And Illinois came storming back. Michigan had Hunter Dickinson had 7 feet from the rim, couldn't get the shot to fall. Double overtime, really back and forth, but Illinois kind of stretched it out a little bit to make it a 4-point victory there. To essentially, it did officially make Purdue the outright Big Ten champion because of that win. But then Purdue in Madison struggled. They struggled a little bit, but they had struggled in Madison as recently as last year, getting snake bitten. So to come out of Madison after struggling the way they did, they shot 66%, I believe, or 63% from the free throw line, and only 23% from the 3-point line. And they still came out of Madison with a win. Zach Edey had 17 points and 19 rebounds. What? It was obvious he was the best rebounder. He was the best player on the court because nobody could match up against him. He was getting rebounds at will. His points didn't come at will, but others brought it. I know Fletcher Lawyer had at least 12. I can look it up, but Purdue struggled from those two, from the free throw line and the 3-point line, but they played good defense. They did turn the ball over a little bit, but overall they shot 50% from the field, 21.1% from three. So I apologize. They had 12 turnovers, but they out rebounded Wisconsin 37-23. When you have that big of a chasm there between the two teams, you're getting more opportunities for putbacks. You're getting more opportunities for kickouts. You're getting more opportunities for fast breaks. And it was apparent that was what won it for Purdue. They, excuse me, they got a hard fought win in a place that they're used to getting snake bitten time and time again. They get beat in Madison more times than they don't. And that's not me making excuses that, oh, it's just Wisconsin and going to Madison, blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason, Purdue goes to Madison and they struggle. To come out with a win, even if it is after struggling, I see this as a moral victory. Now they need a moral victory, a good victory. Now they need to go in against Illinois this weekend on Sunday and work on getting their open shots hit. If they're taking threes, that means they need to hit their threes. They don't need to hit it at 50%, but 21.1% is not a recipe to beat teams in the tournament and be able to advance. If they want a chance at an Elite Eight, a Final Four, and ending the Big Ten drought, championship drought, they've got to find their shots again. And so it's one of those that they've got some games, and I keep saying that they've got time. They do. They've got time to get through the slump, if this is a slump. So they've got a game against Illinois. They are the 1 seed. They'll start playing Friday in Chicago. It's exciting to see what will happen, but it's also very, very concerning in the aspect of they've had this struggle with the threes for multiple games, and they've got to be able to get their stride again and hit that December or that start of the season stride where they're hitting open shots, getting it to Edie in the post, kicking it back out, or Edie getting his fill. So it's a it's concerning, but yet it's one of those that it can be remedied, and that's the big thing is it can be remedied. So let's move to the second quarter, and we're gonna do a couple of different parts. We're gonna look at the top 8 of the Big Ten men's standings, and we're gonna look at Mike DeCourcy's bracketology after this message. So Tony, I just bought some flyers to do, like a grassroots type of advertising for Big Ten +4, and
you can't go wrong with that type of promotion either.
Yeah, correct. And I got a great deal on flyers at Sticker Mule.
Yeah, I remember you saying that all of our stickers, all of our Klingons, everything like that comes from Sticker Mule.
Yeah, now our flyers too.
I guess so. So Sticker Mule is supposed to be the easiest way you can buy custom stickers, decals, labels, and other printing items all online, right?
Yeah, order in 60 seconds and they'll turn your designs and illustrations into custom stickers, magnets, buttons, labels, and packaging in just days. They offer free online proofs, free worldwide shipping, and super fast turnaround. If you click on the link in the show notes, Herman is going to give you $10 off any purchase of at least $10.
And you can start designing and order in minutes with Sticker Mule.
Yeah, and thank you, Sticker Mule. Okay, let's move to the second quarter. Let's look at the top 8. These are the teams that can get that second day bye. Rutgers, big loss last night for Rutgers. They got beat on a buzzer beater in Minneapolis against Minnesota. Minnesota ended a 12-game losing streak. They ended a 12-game losing streak against the Scarlet Knights in Minneapolis, and it was that's a frustrating loss for the Scarlet Knights. So I don't know the exact tiebreakers and the way things can work out, but I think enough teams in this cluster here after Purdue, I think these are the teams that can basically only get that super bye, as I like to call it, because they won't have to play till Friday. But let's look at the scheduling for each of these teams. Illinois plays Purdue. That's a tough game for Illinois. They've got to go to Mackey. It's senior day. It's going to be high energy. They just clinched the outright championship. It's the environment. While the game doesn't matter in the standings, it matters because it's senior day, and Purdue wants to hold its home court. So Illinois got in my mind, the toughest, maybe the toughest adventure going into this. IU and Michigan play each other on Sunday, and there's only one game on Saturday. I'm sorry. Ohio State at Michigan State. Michigan State's number 8. They're missing a game. They had the tragedy on the campus of Michigan State a couple of weeks back. delayed, and they postponed, and I don't know that they're going to make it up. I just don't see that they're gonna make that up against Minnesota. I don't know if they have planned that they're going to, but they'll have to do it very quickly after after Sunday's games if they're going to make it up. And I don't know. I haven't read or heard or anything about whether or not they're going to make that up. Uh, but Michigan State and Ohio State play on Saturday. Let's look at the docket on Sunday. Purdue and Illinois. I said that one. We mentioned earlier, Maryland goes to Happy Valley and plays Penn State. That's a big game because if you look, yeah, they're fifth right there, Maryland, but they could still be the 2 seed depending on the way things go. Or at least I think. I don't know if they hold the tiebreaker over any of these teams, but like any of these teams, if they win, they could be the number 2 seed. They're definitely, I mean, they play each other. Northwestern plays Rutgers, so it's out of the top 8, but if they win, they're going to be they're all vying for it. And the crazy thing is Iowa plays at Nebraska. So like if Northwestern and Iowa win, I believe Iowa gets the tiebreaker over Northwestern. All these things. Wisconsin plays at Minnesota. That's not of any significance to the top 4. Michigan and IU play each other. Whoever wins that gets the higher seed. This cluster has never been seen before by me, but it's all going to kind of shake out to where there might be a 4-way tie for second place. And then you go into the absurdity of tiebreakers and things like that. I don't know what it is after that, because usually it's conference record. Well, if they're tied in the conference, where do they go? Head to head, obviously. But if they split, there are a lot of caveats, and I haven't had a chance to really look it up and see. But it makes for an exciting weekend, an exciting Sunday, basically, because we have a champion. So a lot of times, the last weekend, if you've already got a champion, it kind of is already, settled out, and we kind of know what the tournament looks like. We have no idea what the seeding other than the number 1 seed in that tournament looks like. Well, and we know Minnesota's the 14. And Ohio State's the 13. We know those. I'm pretty positive that any way you look at it, those are the only ones that are absolutely set. Yeah, Wisconsin and Nebraska are tied in records, so that either one of those could be the 12, the other one's going to be the 11. And oh, by the way, if Penn State gets beat by Maryland, Penn State could be the 12. Like but if Penn State wins, they could jump up to the 8 or 9. So there's a lot happening and a lot possible in the standings and in the seedings. So let's move to the bracketology really quick before we go to the break, before we go to the halftime break and jump to the women's tournament. Let's look at bracketology by Mike DeCourcy from Fox Sports, excuse me, and the Big Ten Network. Right now, we're looking at 9 teams. He's got 9 teams in. This was 2 days ago. This came out 2 days ago. That was before Wisconsin lost last night. That was before Michigan lost last night. And it was before Penn State won. So let's look at if you look at the last, or the lower right corner, the last 4 in, Wisconsin's in. He's got Wisconsin in. I don't think the Purdue loss hurts that. I really don't think it hurts that. It is, I know Tony has always said you never want to lose and you never want to say it's a good loss, but that's not a bad loss. Let's say it that way. It's not a bad loss. It's not something that necessarily, it's not something necessarily that you want. But if you're gonna lose to somebody like Purdue, I don't think it hurts. The first 4 out, Michigan, I think that loss to Illinois really hurts. And I saw a graphic before, right after the Northwestern loss. Michigan was in second place by themselves. And they showed the graphic, and it showed the standings 1 through 6. and it showed Joe Lunardi's projected seeding. And it had Purdue at the top with a 1 seed, Michigan second in the conference, entire conference for the full season, number 2 at that point, out of the tournament. And then IU, who was number 6 at the bottom of that graphic, was a 4 seed. It is bananas. So I think Michigan still needs, and they've got some work to do. If they can beat IU on Sunday, that helps immensely. And then if they can get maybe a win, maybe 2 in the Big Ten tournament, I think they're pretty solid. To be in the first 4 out, they're probably going to dump down, unless they beat IU on Sunday. They're going to jump down or be moved down probably to the next 4 out. I don't know Mike's formula or anything, but I would assume, even though IU is a good loss or is not a bad loss, 2 straight losses, I think, probably knocks you down a rung to the next 4 out. With he's got Penn State in there as the next 4 out. I think they're now in the first 4 out, probably pretty close to where North Carolina is there on that piece, simply because Northwestern's a really good win. That's a great win. If you look at the left side, where the brackets are, he's got it. Northwestern as a 6 seed. That's a good win. That's a great win, especially when you're on the road beating them. The graphic on the left, all of those seedings, Rutgers moved down from a 7 to an 8. Michigan State moved, and what a tragic game against Iowa. 12-point lead with about a minute left and ended up losing in overtime. I've never seen an ending like that, and I've never seen a game turn like that, other than Reggie Miller back in the 90s, scoring 8 points in 16.8 seconds against the Knicks in the playoffs. Other than that, I've never seen it. I've never seen something like that happen. But Michigan State's got some work to do. I think they're solid. I think even if they were to lose their next 2 games, they're still in. I mean, if they were to lose their next game, their final regular season game, and then get knocked out in the Big Ten tournament, they're still in. They have a tough schedule. They've got some wins. They've played well against some good teams. I think they're pretty solid. I use a 4 seed it's just and Wisconsin's a 12 seed with a play-in game. All these seem pretty accurate. I would gauge them. My gauging of them is pretty accurate. Excuse me. But the big concentration is, let's look at the upper right, the conference breakdown. Right now, he's Mike DeCourcy, Fox Sports, Big Ten Network, has 9 Big Ten teams actually in the tournament, and 2 more that can still make it, that are still in consideration. That is amazing. If they get 11 teams in, let's say all of them play well enough to get into the field of 68, this was supposed to be a down season. This was, even if they get just the 9, be it Wisconsin, Michigan, Penn State, one of those 3 gets into that last 4. This was supposed to be an extremely down season for the Big Ten. I personally thought it might be a 5-bid league. Maybe 6, maybe. We're looking at 9. The most teams of all college basketball, more than the Big 12, and people saying that the Big 12 is by far the best conference in basketball this year. That may be, but they're not putting as many teams in right now, according to Mike DeCourcy, into the tournament. And looking at the first 4 out and the last 4 out, or the next 4 out, there's only 2 Big 12 teams there. So they could get up to 10. Big 10 could get up to 11, according to to Mike DeCourcy. So it's an interesting situation that we're running into. Now, I know that the seeding is all just subjective, because a lot could change in the next week. because we've got conference tournaments. If teams that are on the bubble get a couple of wins, or if they lose early, they're out. They're just done. And so it's interesting to see what's going to come from the next week in college basketball, and especially the Big Ten. So let's go to the halftime break, and then on the other side of the break, we will look at the women's Big Ten tournament. You are listening to Big Ten Plus 4, hosted on Anchor and StreamYard.
Hi, I'm Lauren.
And I'm John.
And we host the Beard Owl Podcast, the podcast where we talk about two of the greatest things in the world, beer and Weird Al.
And a bunch of other stuff.
That's right. Do you like nostalgia? Do you like sibling banter? Do you like beer? Do you like Weird Al? Are you human?
If you answered yes to any of those questions, give us a listen. Become one of our loyal commenters.
Hey, you there. We've got a question for you. Are you tired of clickbait stories and the loudest voices driving discussions in culture and entertainment?
If so, I'm Dylan.
I'm Kendall.
And I'm Corey. And we host the podcast From the Middle. We're middle-class guys living in the middle of America, in the middle chapters of our lives with points of view somewhere in the middle.
We take a more reasonable and centrist approach in our discussions covering genres like comedy, culture, entertainment, and interviews, with really interesting folks like business owners, comic creators, doctors, news anchors, New York Times best-selling illustrators, professional stand-up comics, and more. We really value a relaxed and conversational podcast, one that we hope is so fun and laid back, you'll forget you're not actually hanging out with us.
So search at From the Mid Pod, just like it sounds, or check us out everywhere you can find podcasts.
Goodness, my whistles have not been working lately. So we're moving to the third quarter. The Big Ten tournament, women's Big Ten tournament, is taking place in Minneapolis. Started Wednesday afternoon, carried through yesterday, and is going to pick back up around 12:30, I believe, today, with the quarterfinals. They're coming through. Let's kind of look. I don't have the graphic. I apologize. Let's look at the games that are going on today and how we got to those. Every game, -1, every game of this tournament has been a close, hard-fought game, and it has been exciting to watch, exciting to see those things. These are some really good basketball teams, and it shows the depth of the conference on the women's side of the basketball as well. Today we have the first game. We have number 9 seed Michigan State against the number 1 seed Indiana Hoosiers. They tip off at 12:30 Eastern time, 11:30 local there in Minneapolis. Michigan State played a really good game against Nebraska. And if you remember, the last time we looked at the bracketology from Charlie Cream, Nebraska's on the bubble. They're in a play-in game or an early round game. They're still on the bubble. Now, I don't know if this obviously hurts. A win against Michigan State would have absolutely helped their cause. But I don't know how solid they were in at that point. We'll look at the bracketology next week after the tournament's done. We can look at Charlie Cream's bracketology for what he sees, and I would assume it would be his last one until Selection Sunday, and the women's tournament is released. But Michigan State had a decent lead going into the fourth quarter. Actually, even with about 7 minutes left, they were up by 9, and Nebraska came storming back and made it a really close, uncomfortable game for just a little bit. And then Michigan State was able to hit a shot and kind of hold them at bay a little bit. Penn State and Michigan and Ohio State will play the second game, which is about a half hour after Michigan State and IU finish up. How Michigan got Michigan's the 5 seed. They should have walked away with the win against Penn State relatively easy. I mean, nothing's easy, but they should have had a win. They won by 2 points. It was a hard-fought game. Leah Brown leading the Wolverines past the Nittany Lions. Now they go and play Ohio State. Ohio State still getting healthy. Still getting healthy, but they are the 4 seed. They could do some damage. If you remember, I've mentioned it. Dalton's mentioned it. IU's only lost 2 games this year. One was the last second shot from Caitlin Clark in Iowa on the regular season finale of the season. But the other loss was at Michigan State to the Spartans, and it was a pretty convincing like Ohio or Michigan State had the game. They beat IU. And so this is one of 2 things can happen with this. Will IU have a revenge factor, or will IU be tight because they know, oh goodness, we've played these guys before and they know how to beat us. I think it's going to be the revenge factor, but I would not hold it past the Spartans to have their number, have IU's number. I'm not calling for an upset. I wouldn't call for that upset, but I could see a scenario where Michigan State makes that very uncomfortable for IU. And if IU gets through it, and it's not a revenge game where they just blow the doors off the Spartans, it could be very uncomfortable for IU. And if they get uncomfortable, which they haven't been used to being in those situations where they're uncomfortable, look out, because it could happen. So Michigan and Ohio State play in that game, or in the second game. Ohio State could do some damage. Let's look at this. They were 19-0 at one point. They were number 2 in the country. They went on a huge skid. Injuries and I think the young factor led into their skid. I think they've started to recover. They're getting healthier. They're getting players back. If they can get full strength, watch out for the Buckeyes in this tournament and in the NCAA tournament once we hit that. Ohio State is probably my second dark horse if you're gonna make me say, below the top 2 seeds of Iowa and IU. Who would I say? And the other one is, and we'll get to the other one. The third game at 5:30 Central Time, so 6:30 Eastern. Purdue, number 7 Purdue and number 2 Iowa play each other. Wisconsin Purdue last night, very good game. Purdue and Wisconsin played both sides of the ball last night, and not too far from one another. One in Madison and one there in Minneapolis for the Big Ten tournament. This game was interesting because at one point it was 30-13 Wisconsin, and Purdue slowly and methodically got back into it. By the time you hit the fourth quarter, it was a 1-possession game. Purdue got the lead, just held on to it, and they were able to pull out a 2-point victory against the Badgers, subsequently probably ending Wisconsin's season. And Purdue plays on to another game, and they're not really solidly in the tournament, according to Charlie Cream. So this helps the Boilermakers case to getting. Now, if they can pull an upset against Iowa, and again, not calling it, but if they could pull an upset against the second seed Hawkeyes, I think they're in, barring what happens in the semifinals. But I think this helps Purdue's case immensely to get to the NCAA tournament and into later March for the tournament. So a big game there for the Boilermakers. It's big for Iowa because I think that Iowa really wants to show that they're, in their eyes, the better team than IU, and they really want to meet IU on Sunday in the championship game. I think that's their driving force. I don't think they're looking past teams, but I think their driving force is get to the championship because IU is going to meet us there. And that gives them a chance on a neutral court. They split at home, at each other's home. So each home team won. Now you get to a neutral court Let's see who wins. And this is very intriguing because honestly, depending on seeding and things, these teams could meet in the tournament. If they both made a Final Four run, let's say, I don't think one will be a 1 seed and the other a 2 in the same region. I don't think the committee would do that. But I honestly could see both of these teams making it to the Final Four and playing one another in the Final Four. So you could have 4 matchups of these two teams playing against each other, and that would be amazing. They're the 2 best teams in the Big Ten, convincingly the 2 best teams in the Big Ten. And oh my goodness, like that could be just a monumental matchup if they were to play in the Final Four. So I'm not necessarily saying it'll happen. You've got to look at draws and things like that, but it's one of those that I'm intrigued to see what happens from it, simply because I've seen these two teams play all year and beat up on everybody, beat up on each other. And if they, especially if they have a third matchup in the Big Ten championship, and then they end up playing each other in the tournament, it would be a great way to wrap up the Big Ten season, basically, by saying, the 2 best teams went and played. Now, my caveat is my one dark horse of this conference is the 3 seed. And the one game that hasn't been close is the Illinois-Rutgers game yesterday. Illinois blew the doors off the Scarlet Knights. No two ways about it. They thumped them handily. It's the one game that's outside of 5 points. All the rest of them have been within 5 points of one another, which makes for an exciting tournament to cover and the tournament to talk about, because that shows you the parity and the closeness of all those top teams. But Maryland and Illinois play the last game of the night, and I think this could be something that watch out for Maryland. I know we've talked about Maryland going to Maryland is impossible. Iowa went to Maryland and got beat by almost 30 points. And I just got done saying Iowa is one of the top 2 teams in the conference. I still believe that. I still would go to the mattresses about it, but I see Maryland as a potential that could absolutely make a run and even get to the Final Four. Diamond Williams, amazing basketball player. She's so athletic. She's got length. She is an absolute beast on that team. There's a reason why Dalton said, I saw Michigan State put up 44 3-point shots in College Park. It's because Maryland is so long and athletic that if you try to get it down too far, they're going to swat it away. They're going to steal it. They're going to prevent you from getting close shots. Zananu from Iowa took 4 shots in their game against Maryland in College Park. That tells you she's an All-American. She's a first team All Big Ten player. 4 shots at Maryland. That's not, and Iowa put up 30 plus 3-pointers. It's what Maryland does at home is amazing, and I think they're maybe a little bit better on the road than the Maryland men. That's not taking away from the Maryland men, but I think they're better on the road than the Maryland men. So I think they're okay on the road. They're number 5 in the country, or number 6 in the country. They are a great team. I think they could make a run. I think they could make the Final Four even. Depending on their draw, I think they could get to the Final Four. So watch out for Maryland. They play Illinois in the last game tonight. It's going to be an interesting way to see how these semifinal matchups play out. These quarterfinal matchups play out into the semifinals. I honestly would probably say it's going to be all chalk. It's going to be the super bye teams that make it to the semifinals. That's not saying that I'm calling that. I just, the way things kind of look, that's the way I would lean, especially with Ohio State getting healthier. Michigan's not playing horribly. I just think that Ohio State's played better this year, and if they are getting healthier and they're at full strength, I think they're going to make some noise in this tournament. So it's going to be fun, interesting, and exciting to watch how this tournament plays out, and then see on Selection Sunday how the tournament shakes out and the draws work out for these Big Ten teams, and which ones the bubble bursts for. Because like I said, Nebraska was squarely on the bubble, and with them losing, I don't know how much that hurts. Michigan State struggled this year at times. They lost to some teams that they shouldn't have. So I think it's a situation where that's not a great loss for the Huskers. I think it could be harmful. It is harmful. A loss is a loss. So a loss is harmful, but it's not against a top tier team of the Big Ten. So it might hurt them a little bit more. Purdue struggled with Wisconsin, a team that's not on the bubble, not in the tournament talk, but they got the win, and they were already on the bubble. Purdue was, and I think they were square in, but they were kind of low seed to where they could easily have fallen into on the bubble, an early round game, first 4 out type thing, if they would have lost to Wisconsin. But that win against Wisconsin helps solidify it, gives them a better record. And if they could somehow beat Iowa tonight, I honestly think that would solidify and put them in no matter what happens in the semis. I'm not holding my breath, Boilermakers. As much as I love Purdue, I don't see that happening, but it could. And watch out for Maryland. So let's move to the fourth quarter and our headlines. I've got one that it is what it is. Let's move to the fourth. Okay, so in the fourth quarter, that brings us to our daily headlines. We select a topic or a headline that caught our eye, and we want to put it on the front page of our fake newspaper. So let's look at the Sam Sentinel. So Purdue has struggled, and there's no two ways about it. They've struggled here lately. They up until last night's game, they had lost 4 of 6, and 4 of 6. That's a horrible stretch, but at times, but let's look at it this way: they lost 4 of 6. After their win last night, they're 25-5. So that means 4 of their 5 losses came in that stretch. So that means they were 20 plus, or I believe 22-1 before they started losing their 4 of 6. Okay. And while that is still concerning that they lost 4 of 6, I've explained that I feel that that's the young players hitting a wall a little bit, and they've got to fight through it. That's not what this headline is about. It's the Fire Matt Painter headlines that people on social media are going to. Why would we want Matt Painter to be gone? Okay. I think this would have happened, and social media has done this. I'm sure there were people that were unhappy with Gene Katie in years that they should have done well in the tournament but didn't, or whatever. But social media wasn't there, so you couldn't go out and just post, I think they need to fire Gene Katie. You can have that feeling, but think it through, everybody. I'm looking at the top coaches in the Big Ten with win in aspect of wins in the conference all time, from the beginning of the Big Ten until yesterday. I'm looking at the top coaches in wins. Number 1's Tom Izzo, 684. Number 2, Bob Knight, 659. Gene Katie, 512 wins. Lou Henson, great Illinois coach back in the day, 421 wins. Number 5 is Matt Painter with 409 wins. Why in the world would we want to get rid of a coach that is 5th all time in Big Ten wins? He's only in his 15th season, and he's already number 5. Now, he's a couple of 270 plus wins away from Tom Izzo, but he's in his 15th season at Purdue, and he's got 409 wins in the Big Ten and has multiple Big Ten championships. I've said multiple times, and Dalton has as well, we hold more credence to Big Ten championships and wins during the regular season because it shows the value of the team. Game Day Gabby on Wednesday said that she would rather have a long tournament run 100%. I don't consider her wrong. I'm not mad at her for wanting that. But she, in that same breath, right before she said I want a long Purdue run in the tournament, a breath before that said Iowa always seems to get hot at the right time. That's what the tournament is. It's who's playing well at that time and the draw you get. So while you could be the best team in the country, if you get a bad draw and you get the toughest 4 seed who's playing out of their mind, they got the 4 seed because they won 7 straight and then the conference tournament, you're in trouble. That 4 seed is playing much better. Look back in the late 90s when Arizona went on their run, they beat 3 number 1 seeds. They were a 4 seed themselves. And they beat 3 1 seeds. That had never happened up until that point. And it was because they were playing hot basketball. That's not to take away from what they did during the regular season, but they're a 4 seed for a reason, folks. So, my point on this is, why would we get so worked up? And if your best and what you want is a long tournament run, then okay, I can understand you being unhappy with Matt Painter, but to start a fire Matt Painter hashtag, it's silly. It is absolutely silly. Who are you going to get? Purdue, like it or not, is not a perennial blue blood. It's not an IU from the historically. It's not a Duke. It's not a North Carolina. It's not a Kansas. I said this the other day. They do not get the menu of 5 stars that Mike Krzyzewski did at Duke. Mike Krzyzewski, his last year, started 5 McDonald's All-Americans. 5. Matt Painter has 1 5-star recruit. What he does with little is amazing. And that's why, being the fan of Purdue, knowing what Purdue is as a program, they don't draw as well as IU. And I'm able to admit that, and I accept it. They don't draw the recruits that IU does. IU walks in the door, not even the coach, just the IU. Somebody walks in representing IU. They have the gravitas of those 5 banners that they often tell everybody that they've got. That does pull some weight. That does hold some water. But at the same time, year in and year out, Purdue is in the top half of the Big Ten. Purdue is contending for a Big Ten title. And last year, they had one of the best players in the Big Ten. a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. That is the exception to the Purdue rule, not the Purdue rule. Just like Glenn Robinson for Gene Katie was the exception to the rule, not the rule. Konzo Martin played on that same team, never had made a 3-point basket in his career until his junior year. Freshman and sophomore year, he was 0 for 13. He wasn't a high recruit. But what did he do? He worked on over the summer. Gene Katie made him work on his threes, made him work on his threes. He became one of Purdue's best 3-point shooters in its history. That's what Purdue does. They take little and make a lot. So for those that want to fire Matt Painter, keep that to yourself. You're not going to fire the 5th highest ranking coach in Big Ten history in wins, unless there is completely a reason to do so. And I know that was a rant. I know it was an awful long rant, but that is the Sam Sentinel. It's that brings us to the end of the show, folks. What a fun time of the year. I love this time of year. I love the tournament. I get to go to Columbus and cover the Big Ten, any Big Ten teams. Well, the tournament games in general. Excuse me, but I would assume with the way the committee tries to do things that there will be at least one Big Ten team there in Columbus. I'm excited to be able to do that, and it makes this time of year even more exciting and wonderful. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. The next week is going to be immensely fun. So and exciting and interesting to see the way it plays out. So if you're wanting to find us on social media and tell me how wrong I am or how right I am or whatever, just don't call me names. Be nice. You can go find us on Twitter, the TikToks, and the Instagram at Big Ten Plus 4. You have to spell out the plus. Go to Facebook if you want to go there. Just Big Ten Plus 4. You can put the plus, you can spell out the plus, you can think about the plus, and it'll probably put you in the right spot. We are on oddpodsmedia.com. We are the only sports show in that family of podcasts and shows. But we have all sorts. We have a barbecue show, a couple that cover beer, some game shows. So like there's a lot there to consume within oddpodsmedia.com. We are streamed twice a week. If you're watching this, we are streamed twice a week on ASAP Network, the All Sports All Plays Network. They also have an app now. So go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, download the ASAP Network app, and you can find before too long there will be the live TV show or the stream as well. So we stream on you can find ASAP on Amazon or Apple or Roku, wherever. And if you miss the stream and you want to find watch the stream, you can go to Spotify, check it out there, but you can listen to the audio version of the podcast anytime, anywhere you digest your podcasts. So that is it for today. Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking us out and letting us know what you think about things. Let us know what you think. Be on the lookout for new content on a regular basis. And I am Sam Sprunger for Dalton Shetler, who's in Minneapolis at the Women's Big Ten Tournament. Tony Hollinsworth, who is still trying to work his way back to the show. I am Sam Sprunger, like I said earlier, and we'll see you later.